Hello, we're back. We're at chapter 12. After exciting information on the second woe rapture of the church to be caught up to heaven to be with our Lord, I don't know what else we can find out here. And a great sign was seen in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another sign in heaven. And behold, there was a great fiery dragon, having 7 heads, and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail cut off a third of the stars in heaven and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to be delivered, so as to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a male child who was to shepherd all the nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God, that she would feed there 1,260 days. Now, let's stop right there just for a moment and look at this. It's telling us that Jesus was the male child who rules the nations with a rod of iron. So he was caught up to heaven. So it's a picture of him being raptured to heaven, taken up alive after 3.5 days. So this part of this goes back to the beginning. And you can see these chapters in Revelation are not in order, because we're going to get over here a little ways, and we're going to go back to some things. But right here, part of this chapter is talking about Jesus. Now, and 1,203 score days. Now, what else does it talk about? There was war in heaven, and Michael and his angels. So Michael is in charge of a group of angels, and they're fighting against the dragon. Now, this is a picture of the woman, which is the church, meaning the women, people of all the churches. So this is talking about also the church age, when Jesus was caught up to heaven, and the church ages up until the time when we're taken up. And verse 8, but did not prevail, neither was their place found any longer in heaven. So in other words, Michael and his angels fought with the devil and his angels, and they were cast out of heaven. At the time we go up, they're cast down, okay? Because their time is short, and they're going to be wreaking havoc on the earth and killing every Christian that was left that did not have did not go up in the rapture. That old serpent, the devil, was cast out, meaning he's cast down to this earth. That old serpent called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world, he was cast out on the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard, now, when Jesus died and went back to heaven, Satan was cast out of heaven. He was cast out of heaven the first time when he fell in the very beginning, when they were mating with earth women. But then he's also been tossed out of heaven again at the time of the second coming. And in other words, he has been cast down to the earth finally, because he was the power of the air and in the second heaven, third heaven. But he did not prevail, neither was their place found any longer in heaven. Thus the great dragon was cast out, the old serpent called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast out to earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, Now the deliverance and the power and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have been accomplished. For the accuser of the brethren, devil, who accused them night and day before God, is cast down. So he had access to heaven and God until this point. Now, when he's cast down to the earth, um, he will no longer have power of the air or accusing brethren, because there will be no brethren left to accuse. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and did not spare themselves even to death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you, and his wrath is great, because he knows his time is short. So, in other words, after the rapture has happened, we see that at the beginning of this chapter, it was about Jesus going back to heaven, and the devil being cast out of heaven. But after the rapture, the second woe, he's going to be cast even further down. He's going to be put on the earth, not just in the heavens. Therefore, O heavens, you dwell, because woe to the inhabitants of the earth, for the devil has come down to you, and his wrath is great, because he knows his time is short. And when the dragon saw that he was cast down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to a son. So, this is a picture of him being throughout the ages, as we've seen him operate through the popes throughout the ages. Um, and the woman who had given birth to a son was Jesus. And to the woman were given two wings of an eagle. In other words, the church had to be scattered around the world, that she might fly from the presence of the serpent to the wilderness into her place where she would be nourished. And this is where preachers also mess up, and they say, well, they're going to be there 3.5 years. This doesn't say 3.5 years. This says for years and months and days. In other words, that's an innumerable amount of time that these people are being nourished. And I am of the opinion that when the Jews were scattered and they went out all over the earth, they do not know who they are, and they were scattered into multiple countries. And for all I know, I could be Jewish blood and not know it. But all people were scattered, and our history has been their history has been wiped out. That's why they're testing to see who are Jews in the blood Jews now. Then the serpent sent a flood of water out of his mouth after the woman, so that she might cause her to be swept away by the flood. And as we see, the Catholic Church throughout history has they killed 68 million Christians and Jews, and they're tried to wipe us out continually. And they're going to have one last little try. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened his mouth and swallowed up the water which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. And the dragon was enraged at the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her children, who kept the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus. Now, that is up to this day and age right now. So, the second half of this chapter 12 falls right before chapter 11. Okay, that's pretty confusing. I know this, because from now on it's really going to be confusing. But next we'll go to chapter 13. Thank you.